March 1945. German intelligence is watching a stretch of the Rhine River. Their reconnaissance shows tanks crowding the roads, radio operators filling the airwaves, an entire army massing for a major assault. There's just one problem. That army didn't exist. What the Germans were actually seeing was the US Army's 23rd Headquarters Special Troops. A secret unit so unusual that history would remember them by another name, the Ghost Army. They were armed not with firepower, but with deception.
Well, I think we were around essentially to serve as decoys. That was the intent of having us around, to mislead the enemy. In other words, we were the deceivers. I would call us the deceivers.
Their mission was not to destroy the enemy. It was to convince the enemy they were somewhere they weren't, using inflatable tanks, fake radio traffic, carefully staged convoys, and some of the most elaborate battlefield deceptions ever attempted.
The Germans had a very structured command, very brittle, and they had a very low opinion of the intelligence of the American soldier. We had to play dumb, and we gave them a lot of false information.
We'd find out if, like, a division or a special unit had a particular song that they liked to sing. We get blitzed and sing their song.
They fooled German commanders again and again. And in doing so, they may have saved the lives of tens of thousands of Allied soldiers who never knew their names. And this is their story. By the summer of 1944, the Allies had cracked Hitler's Atlantic Wall. But the hard part wasn't getting ashore. The front stretched hundreds of miles across Western Europe. American divisions were spread thin. Every time a unit moved, to attack, to reinforce, to regroup, it left a gap. The Germans were masters of reading those gaps. Allied commanders needed something unusual. Not more troops, there weren't enough. Not more tanks, they couldn't be moved fast enough. What they needed was an illusion. The British had already proved it could work. At El Alamein in 1942, Operation Bertram used dummy tanks and false radio traffic to fool Rommel about where the real attack would come from. It worked. Now, two American planners in London, journalist turned officer Ralph Ingersoll and Colonel Billy Harris, decided to take that idea further. On January 20th, 1944, a new unit was activated at Camp Forest, Tennessee. Its official name was the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops. Its unofficial name, the Ghost Army.
One friend did recommend to me that I go see somebody who was a colonel on Governor's Island, and he said, "What do you want? You want to get into the Army? Can I help you?" I said, "Yes." I went to the High School of Music and Art. You could call me an artist or whatever you want. He said, "I think there is a unit, and it's a camouflage unit. I like that a lot." I said, "I want it. I'd like to get into it."
When the Army went looking for recruits, they didn't visit rifle ranges, they visited art schools. The visual deception arm of the Ghost Army, the 603rd Camouflage Engineers, was recruited almost entirely from art institutions in New York and Philadelphia.
So I went to this radio school and graduated. And at graduation time, the fellow said, "Okay, you've graduated, congratulations. All you people on this side fall out." And we went outside and he said, "You people get ready to pull out. We're going to take you to Camp Forest, Tennessee."
Men who had been painters, illustrators, architects, set designers. Among them, a young fashion designer from Fort Wayne, Indiana, named Bill Blass. A minimalist painter from Brooklyn named Ellsworth Kelly. A photographer named Art Kane, who would later shoot some of the most iconic images in American rock history. But the Ghost Army wasn't just artists. It needed engineers for sound, radio operators for deception, actors, impersonators, men who could walk into a town and convincingly pretend to be generals.
I was designated as a regimental commander of the 199th Regiment in the 30th Division. I was really a captain, but I was impersonating a colonel, a full colonel, as a regimental commander.
They also did more of making sure you were seen in local French pubs with a new patch on your shoulder, so that spies, wherever they might be lurking, would be able to report in, hey, the 3rd Armored Division is here. We didn't know they were around.
Their weapon wasn't firepower, it was theater, and their audience was the German army. Imagine a Sherman tank that weighs 93 pounds. The Ghost Army's inflatable vehicles were manufactured by the US Rubber Company in Rhode Island, assembled, in part, by local teenagers earning 49 cents an hour after school. Deflated, a tank fit in the back of a truck. Inflated, it was indistinguishable from the real thing on aerial reconnaissance. A small team could deploy an entire armored division, dozens of tanks, artillery pieces, jeeps, half-tracks, in a matter of hours.
And so several of us could sit down, blow in nozzles which inflated tubes, and which formed ultimately the shape of a tank or gun or truck.
But the visual deception was only one layer. The second weapon was sound.
The sonic people had at that time, wire recorders, and they were pretty effective and pretty good. And their speakers were just state-of-the-art.
They played pre-recorded tracks of armored columns, bridge construction, massed infantry, sounds designed to convince German listeners that thousands of troops were moving in the dark. Those sounds could be heard 15 miles away. The third weapon was radio. Ghost Army radio operators didn't just broadcast false traffic. They studied the specific fist, the unique tapping rhythm of the real operators they were replacing. Every genuine unit had a recognizable signal signature. The Ghost Army copied it.
They all had their system. Like the 4th Army would go dit, 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 dit. That'd be 4. Real big deal, but it was their identifier.
To German intelligence listening on the other end, nothing had changed. The division was still there, but it was never there. By March 1945, the Ghost Army had run more than 20 deception operations. They had impersonated armored divisions. They had held dangerously undermanned sections of Patton's front line with 500 men pretending to be 8,000. But what came next was their masterpiece. The US 9th Army needed to cross the Rhine, the last major natural barrier before the heart of Germany. The crossing point was 10 miles north of where the Ghost Army would make the Germans think it was. Operation Viersen. The Ghost Army deployed over 600 inflatable vehicles. Fake radio traffic filled the airwaves. Sound trucks played recordings of bridge construction, pontoons being lowered, engines churning, night after night along the decoy stretch of river. They impersonated 2 full divisions, roughly 40,000 soldiers, conjured from thin air by 1,100 men with speakers, rubber, and nerve. The 9th Army crossed the Rhine with almost no resistance. The official Army post-war assessment was unambiguous. Rarely, if ever, has there been a group of so few men which had so great an influence on the outcome of a major military campaign. Historians estimate the Ghost Army's operations saved the lives of between 15,000 and 30,000 American soldiers. None of those soldiers ever knew why they made it home.